Well, hi everyone, and welcome to the Breaking into Los Angeles as an actor or model online workshop with Aaron Marcus and his guests. Aaron Marcus is America's premier acting and commercial modeling career coach. He's also a top-selling author and founder of HowToModel.com, one of Google's top-ranked acting and modeling career sites. Aaron has been cast as Dr. Stephen Leopold on NBC's show Do No Harm. He had a scene with Judi Dench in her new film Philomena, and he worked in Atlanta on the feature film Almanac and two independent films, Eugene and A Modest Suggestion. He's been a full-time actor and commercial model for over 3 decades. To date, he's been cast over 1,200 times. That's 1,200 times. You've seen him in projects such as Burn After Reading, Law and Order, Criminal Intent, The West Wing, Crybaby, America's Most Wanted, Molson Beer, McDonald's, Kmart, A Modest Suggestion, HBO's The Wire, and Disney World. Aaron's also appeared in print ads throughout the United States, Europe, the Netherlands, and Asia. He's written what many consider the most important book for commercial modeling, entitled How to Become a Successful Commercial Model, and now it's in its 5th edition. He writes and publishes the Tear Sheet newsletter, a quarterly commercial modeling and acting newsletter. He's given over 500 workshops in 4 countries and also offers monthly online workshops for actors and models, as well as private one-on-one online coaching sessions. Aaron, we're excited to be here at the workshop today.
Well, first of all, I am so excited to be here today. I haven't seen Stuart for many years, but he is just an amazing human being and an incredible casting director. He's just unbelievably successful. We were just talking earlier that one of the commercials that he cast, he actually discovered a kid in a very small town in Ohio, and he just won a huge prize. It was for Nike. But let me just say, he's done commercials for Burger King, Mattel, Macy's, Maybelline. If you go to his website, it's and I believe it's StuartStoneCasting.com. Stuart, you can let me know in a second if I didn't do that correctly. Tylenol, and he also just cast an independent feature called The Sacred. He does print casting as well for commercial modeling jobs. So I'm just very thankful that we have Stuart here today. Stuart, first of all, welcome to the workshop. And let me make sure, is your website StuartStoneCasting.com?
It's stonecasting.tv, but that's production side, so they can see what I've done. Okay. And if they're interested in anything else, it's stewartsworkshop.com.
Okay, fantastic. Because at the end of the day, because I didn't mention it yet, I was going to mention it later. Stuart also was an author. He's got a wonderful book, and he also does lots of workshops that you want to learn more about. And we will be posting both of the websites in this workshop, so you'll be able to see it later as well. You know, I know this is a workshop about breaking into Los Angeles, but one of the things that I think is really crucial for people to have a very clear understanding of is exactly what a casting director does. So I just want to spend a few minutes here and ask you some questions, and I know in some ways they seem a little bit basic, but actually this information is just so important for people to have. So maybe we can just start it off with, would you let everybody know, how do you get cast on a project? Who hires the casting director, and how does that process work?
We get hired either by the production company from the director or a producer, or we can actually really get hired straight from the advertising agency. So if a production company isn't in place at the time, we will get hired to come in and start the project.
And is a lot of it simply, you've done work with people, your name gets around, or do you actually try to market yourself as well?
It's both. It's a little of both. So in a way, we're kind of like an actor because we have to get our name out there and market ourselves. But a lot of it is through the years, people have worked with you, or they know your work, you know what you do. Like you said, I travel. A lot of casting directors don't travel around the country. I'm sent out a lot to travel around the country, as well as been doing it so long here, we won't say how long, that they know who you are and what you can do.
So, like for instance, the what we were talking about earlier, it was the Nike commercial that you cast.
Yeah, that was Nike. It was a really heavy set young kid running down the street. You don't see him because it's like a foggy morning, and then he comes out of the fog, and you think it's a major athlete, and it ends up being this really young, heavy set kid, really overweight. We were in London, Ohio, casting another part of another commercial, and they came up with this idea. Nike was completely afraid of it. They decided to go for it, and it became the Olympics commercial. The number one commercial for the Olympics, most watched, most remembered, and then it just won an Academy Award or an Emmy Award, whatever those are coming up this couple weeks.
That's
So
incredible.
they won that, yeah. So I'm pretty excited. I mean, I love finding people, like I said, that are out there that we can discover, kind of like that. So it's fun.
Now, when it comes to casting, just so people know, um, so you are contacted, and let's just say in this particular case, it's an advertising agency, and then they give you information as to the different types. They give you the breakdowns of what kinds of characters they're looking for, what kinds of ages, ethnicities, heights, looks, and things like that. What exactly happens next in that process?
Right away, we have to start going out and finding those people. So if it's a regular commercial in Los Angeles here, we use LA Casting or Casting Networks, which is also now going global. So we can pretty much cast anywhere ahead of time. And we start looking through all of the different headshots, resumes, and that happens a lot quicker these days. It used to be headshots, and we'd have to wait 4 to 8 hours before the headshots would arrive to our office. Now with the internet, they arrive within seconds. So once I put it out with one of the services, within minutes, even seconds, your pictures start arriving into the office for me to start looking at.
And just so that everybody knows, those are websites that actors can actually be on, and they will get information from casting directors and other people as well when you are looking for certain looks, and then the actors can actually submit themselves directly to you.
Yes, you can submit yourselves. I want to be clear though, because there are a lot of companies out there um, that aren't part of the casting directors. What should I say? Of our toolbox, we don't use them. The two that are used are Casting Networks, which is LA Casting, or if you're in New York, it's New York Casting, or San Francisco, etc., or Breakdown Services. Those are the two that are used by everybody. There's a couple others, but I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, is Actors Access part of?
That's Breakdown, I believe. Yeah, Actors Access, Breakdown Service. Yeah, yeah. But those are the two go-tos that we use as our first choices. There's a lot of others that they try and recruit from other places, but honestly, and I mean, I'm very against scams, but I do like to bring that up that a lot of them will steal our breakdowns out here in LA or New York or Chicago or wherever, post them, and we're having a big problem with that. So you really, as an actor, need to be aware of where you're posting your picture and where there's work. What are you paying for? And like you said, with LA Casting, it's all the casting directors here in Los Angeles. Actors Access Breakdown is all the theatrical, and you can submit yourself, so which is a great opportunity as well.
And the thing that's nice, and I know I'm kind of jumping a little bit here with the workshop, but this is actually a way for actors when you're first coming to LA and you want to start submitting yourself if you haven't gotten any kind of representation yet. This is a way that you can actually start trying to get work. And you can actually be on, I believe you can be on those websites at no cost. You have a couple of options. One is I think you can have like one photo or maybe two photos, and then if you don't pay anything, every time you submit yourself, there is a small fee for that. Or you can pay a small annual fee, and then all of your submissions are free. And yeah, I mean, those are great ways for you to be seen by casting directors. But I can also tell you, as you were saying, Stuart, you've got to do this so quickly because once it's out there, you get inundated, and then once you find enough people to bring in for a casting, then you're going to stop looking.
Well, Aaron, there's two things. One is, and you may know this better than me on that side, the actor side, I believe they have the opportunity that the agents actually can go through and see who signed up every 30 days, and they can actually contact you for representation.
Oh.
So there's a way a lot of people go after to find new talent or new companies that are starting up can actually, if once they're on there, they have their license. In order to be on there, they have to have their business license and have referrals. So not any agent or any manager can get on there, but you can get picked up by an agency. So I just found that out from somebody, so I guess that's been around for a while. But you said, yeah, the quick thing about submitting is actors will submit themselves and forget what they submitted for because they just click a button. And then you go to send them an email and they forget to respond, or they forget, it really is a business and you have to know how to work the business, because so many people, we then decide to select somebody, and we're having this problem now, is finding the people or getting them to respond that they're either going to get to their audition or not, so we know if they even saw their email. And then if we do find them, did they show up? Why didn't they show up? Trying to find them later on or get them to respond is very difficult. So a lot's going on now where actors are actually making that system harder and harder for us to use. So we're doing less and less of it. And those that are savvy of it are the ones that are getting called in, and the others are missing all those opportunities from not understanding how to do what they're doing and not taking the time to learn. So those that are missing, so if you learn it, then you're a step ahead of all those that are still submitting and not following up. So if you know it, you can get into an audition. If you don't participate correctly, then you're missing out on a lot.
Yeah, well, I know that with a number of the agents that I work with, they all have their own codes, and so basically they are able to submit me to different projects as well, as long as I am in that system. But you're right. I think you hit on a really important part. I mean, the acting and modeling industry, it is a business, and I found that for the most part, the people who are the most successful are the people that run it, as a business. And that's something I was going to talk with you a little bit later about, as far as just being responsible and, showing up on time, returning emails and things like that. But kind of just getting back to the casting process. So let's say you've sent this information out, you bring people in to read, and actually I'd be kind of curious, and I don't even know if you know these numbers, but let's say you're casting for a commercial and you're looking for a female between the ages of, I don't know, 20 to 25.
1,800, Aaron, 1,800 submissions these days. 1,800 people in that age group to about 21, 2,200. In order for me, I actually didn't mean to jump you, but I know where you're going with this.
Yeah.
We can see it on the computer now. Before we would have to count all those stacks of people, but it actually tells us how many submissions. And over the last 10 years, it's jumped from 500 to 800 per a submission. So it's more than doubled in 10 years of the amount of actors available to us. So
yeah, I was just going to say, so out of those 1,800, how many people are you realistically going to bring in for a casting?
I was just going to get to, yeah,
oh, okay.
We're tracking. Probably between 30 and 40. How, I know what you're thinking, so how do I pick those 30 or 40?
Yeah.
I do look through all the pictures. I will look at everybody. A lot of times it's the go-to agents. Everyone works a little bit different. Sometimes it's the go-to agents because I know that those actors are seasoned or prepared or responsible, and I can count on them. And I can count on those actors to not decline their audition. It's interesting that a smaller agent has more problems with their actors being professional than a lot of the bigger agents who that's what those people have done is created themselves as a business. So the smaller agents who do have the responsible people who do show will work in the business, even because I will go to those small agents, but it's also looking at the resume. When I get down to, I will go through all of them and maybe end up with 150 to 300 people, and then I've got to get that down to my 30 or 40, so I have to look at why I don't want to bring them in as compared to why I should. So I look at the resume, and if they don't have a resume with the proper training on it, and that proper training being a commercial workshop, improv, and then theatrical, I'll go after those that have studied, and it's who they've studied with. College training doesn't transfer to California or New York. Training in New York transfers to LA hugely, no matter who you're with, just what happens. It really is studying with those people that are coaches in LA that have a reputation, and those people are obviously trained right, and why everybody goes to those schools. And then I will get down to my 30 or 40, and that's how we end up with those people. I call it like working on in the target. So you have all those people who don't run. You know, if you look at the rings of a target, that red dot is very small in the middle, and that really is a true representation of the amount of actors that are making money and working in the business and running themselves as a business as a whole.
Yeah, and you know that's really interesting because I'm going to be with our last guest today. I'm going to be talking more about classes, but just overall, and I think this is a very comforting thing for people maybe who are just getting started. And this holds true whether you're living in Allentown, Pennsylvania, or in Los Angeles. You know, for those people who really haven't done much work, but they're just getting started. And I think you really hit it when you said, well, one of the key things for you is what kind of training have they had? Because at least I'm assuming if you see somebody whose headshot is perfect, it's a great look for what you need, and you're looking at the resume and you're saying, well, it looks like they're just getting started here, but they studied with some great people who people who you respect. I would think that would at least nudge you a little bit into thinking, well, let me bring this person in and give them a try because I think they're perfect and I know who they've studied with and that they have a good pedigree there.
Yeah, I love discovering new people, and it's always great because your directors hire a lot of casting directors for discovering that new fresh person for them. So if I can discover someone and bring them someone new, part of the reason why I like teaching classes is because you're putting more people out there with the possibility to book jobs. I will always look at the bottom. I kind of say if you plant a tree in good soil, good training, you're going to get a lot more fruit and benefit, and you don't have to fill up the top of your resume. It'll fill itself up. It'll flourish by itself. If you put it in bad dirt and you don't take care of it and you don't do anything, and the success rate is going to be slim to none.
That's a really great point. So after people have come in, they've read, do you narrow it down to first, second, and third choice, and then send the tape to the director?
What we do is, I won't lie, if you're not prepared and you're not ready, sometimes you just don't nail that job, just isn't yours. We will delete them off the auditions, and we send our final selections. So when I see 40 people, 30 may make it to the director, 5 to 10 may not. They'll get to the director, the ad agency, creatives, and they'll make a selection of callbacks. We'll do our callbacks. So we'll call back.
Would you explain exactly what a callback is?
So the callback is when they've seen who they liked and they're interested in them. Something captured their attention or their eye. Brought them in. We'll bring them in to meet the director and the ad agency clients. In theatrical, we call it a producer session. In commercials, we just call it a straight callback. And they'll come in and we'll either re-audition them with new copy or new moves, or they've sussed out a lot of ways they want to shoot this. And see, we're the first ones on. So a lot of times the director hasn't really had a one-on-one with the ad agency. A lot of times it's right when they've met at my office for the first time during callbacks. And then they kind of talk about what they want the actor to do. And they kind of learn as they go in the casting process and discover more of what they're looking for. So those actors are really bringing a uniqueness. So when they try to give it to the director a certain way that they think the director or ad agency want it to be, kind of hurts them, because they're just trying to see what they can get from different actors and who has more range. That's where your training comes in. That's where your improv comes in, so that they can see who they're going to have, who they can play with more. It's like who's going to be just low key. They can be versatile in the way they act and give them different variations, because they're discovering it right along with the actor, and the actor doesn't realize that. It's something over the years that I've come to realize. They're not 100% sure, so maybe what you're giving them is what they want. They just didn't know it.
And do you hold, like, everybody has different philosophies with this, and I'd be curious to hear your take on it. I mean, what I've always been told by certain groups, and this is what I follow, and I realize everybody has different, thoughts about it. If I give a read, whether it's for a theatrical, meaning, a television series or a feature film, or a commercial as well, if I read it a certain way for the audition, and now I'm getting a callback, I'll try to read it as close to the original way that I auditioned with, because that's what they liked, and that's why they're calling me back. And if they want more changes, which they probably do, that's when they'll tell me, and that's when they'll give me new direction. But I have heard of some actors, their philosophy is, well, I want to go back and immediately show them something completely different. I want to immediately show them that I have a wide range. And personally, I don't think that's the best way to do it, because give them what they like. That's why they called you back. So I'm curious about your opinion on that for a callback.
I would be more feeling the way you are. Give them what you came in with, because that's what got you there, and then let them alter you the way they want and give you suggestions. Because ultimately they're going to try to get you back to where you started from, who you were on your first audition. They may remember, and sometimes they don't. So coming in, you may be completely off the mark, giving them something new to try to be different or show your range. They've already invited you back. You're already there. They already like you. So they're just trying to see what you can do. So throw in what you did, and then be versatile enough to change it as many ways as possible.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me as well. So once the callbacks have taken place, now they have to start making decisions. Are you, as the casting director, is that something that you are a part of, or has your job already ended and now it's up to the director, the client, maybe the people, from the ad agency? Is it up to them now?
Oftentimes I'll step out of it just to let them make a decision, because sometimes we'll make a comment or try to help them in a decision, and I feel sometimes it could backfire, because I'll think someone's awesome and they can show up and for some reason they're not happy with them. Ultimately, it was their decision, and ultimately that decision was signed off, because after we've made that decision, it has to go to Mr. Taco Bell or Mr. Aliv, and they sign off on those people. So when we're making the selection, I'm often called in to use my professionalism and talk to them about the different actors, and what do I think and who's going to be best for what they're looking at doing. And it's definitely a powwow. Some casting directors, just depending on their directors, don't want their input. Seems though that my clients and me, we always seem to powwow, and I give them feedback on the actors and what I know about them and what I think they can do and my experience of them working with them. So a lot of times, you know, I want to go back just for a second. A lot of times you can go to your audition and you'll have someone running the lobby, you'll have somebody running the session, helping me run the camera. All those people are influential if you're going to stay on that tape. If you come in with an attitude, or people will come in, believe it or not, and say, you know, I've got 2 other auditions, can you see me really quick? I have plenty of people, I have 40 people. If you're too busy to come to my audition and wait like everyone else, you know what, have a nice day and go to your other auditions that seem to be more important. You know, you're 40 out of over 1,800 people that got invited, and then you're going to pull attitude. So that's the thing. Actors are like, oh, well, I can't make it today, but can I come in tomorrow? As if we're casting for weeks on this project, and it's usually one day. So I was just laughing with an agent the other day, but the thing is, if you give an attitude or anything that's not professional, we don't want to send you on to our directors. So when you're there, if for some reason you were okay, you didn't give bad attitude, but you really weren't a big fan of ours, you could be difficult, you gave us any inkling that you could be difficult, we would mention that to them at the time. This actor may be a problem, or this one was hard to reach, or they kept wanting to reschedule their time. So we will often comment on the actor themselves, and you know, like I said, it's who you are. If you're going to, you know, be difficult, it's going to trickle down, and you're going to have that effect. If it's just a small little thing, then maybe they'll shoot with you. But we do have input.
Got it. Now, in Los Angeles, I know we were talking about this a little bit earlier also, it seems like if you want to work in Los Angeles, I mean, aside from when you are sent out and you are scouting, but those are, I mean, that's unusual. I mean, you're probably one of a handful of casting directors that are in a position where you're flown out, you know, throughout the country to search for somebody. But would you say in general, if somebody wants to work in the Los Angeles market, I'm assuming that you've got to be there because, you know, you're not going to be flying in for an audition, or you're not going to be able to just email an audition for a TV commercial very easily. And I'm assuming it's because there's so many people who are available to audition and you want to see them in person.
Yeah, I mean, the ideal way is to see them in person. If we have enough people and there's no reason to go outside and do it any other way than see them in the office and be able to work with them. Otherwise, you know, if we're doing a huge scout and we're looking for people across the country and we can do it from the comfort of the office, we will. But like I said, a lot of times I go out, you know, I go out scouting across the country. But for the most part, there's so many people available to us that you got to be here, and the auditions are usually sometimes hours later after the audition goes out. The clients don't have any more money to do another day. We don't have time because it shoots in 3 days. We have to make a decision tomorrow, but they want to see a new character. So I have to throw that into the mix on an already full day and get those people in at the end of the day. So you're hearing at 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning that you have an audition at 2 or 3 o'clock. So, and there's plenty of people that will make it. And then you've got the people that are available tomorrow, you know, for the other job. So, or the other role. So pretty much, yeah, if you're not here, it's going to be really tough.
Now, are things much different if you're casting for, you know, an independent feature or for a print job, for a commercial modeling job or a TV commercial? Or is it pretty much, you know, the same process for the casting director?
Pretty much the same process. I mean, theatrical, you have a lot more time for film. Commercials are right away, within days, hours. Film is days and a week, you know. You're on the project a long time. Print is really quick. Commercial print has really picked up in the last several years because they like the actor. They've discovered the actor. who can move and has personality. It doesn't have to be a stiff model. So they've, started realizing that an actor offers a lot more than, quote, just the model. And it brings a lot of texture and reality to the print campaign itself. So, and that happened pretty quick.
Ah, I was just going to say the reason why I'm kind of looking a little stubbly right now is because I've got a GOSI for a commercial modeling job in a couple of days, and it's a pharmaceutical, and they want this guy to look a little bit more disheveled. So, yeah, and I agree with you 100%. I mean, quite often they want actors who have the ability to portray lots of different emotions and show layers of expressions and things like that. So, but that's interesting. So now, as far as people getting in touch with, whether it's you or other casting directors, certainly, we talked earlier that they can submit themselves, that they are on some of the, good online services. Do people still, send in headshots to you, through the U.S. mail?
It's getting a lot less. What's happening is they're starting to email us, and they're emailing improperly. When I say improperly, they will send a letter saying, I'm interested in working with your agency. Well, like I said earlier, we're not an agency, and we don't represent talent. So right away it tells me they don't know what they're doing, so we pretty much delete those.
If I could just jump in for 1 second, just so that everybody knows, there's no such thing as a casting agent. They're casting directors. They don't represent people. They don't do anything that the agents do. So yeah, just want to make sure that everybody understand. You've got agents and casting directors. So
right, you got your talent agent, your casting director, and your manager. So we buy from the talent agent or the manager is really how it's looked at. When you try to submit yourself and they are like, I'm interested in working with you, and they send no picture or no resume, I'm like, so what am I supposed to do with this email? Or they'll send pictures that are improper or, just not right, and we really can't really get a sense of who they are. You were going to say something?
The work could be too large. I'm sure you must get, emails with JPEGs that are so huge that either it would take forever to download, or when you do, you just see, one eye or something like that.
Right. Yeah, they don't know what they're doing, and so once again, the professionalism speaks for itself and the education of what's going on. So they get deleted, and they're bombarding they're finding our emails, and they're continually submitting, really, to a disservice to themselves.
Well, if somebody actually mailed you a hard copy of their headshot, resume, and a cover letter, is that something that you would look at and, at least keep somebody in mind if there was a project that was right for them?
It's hard. If your picture doesn't arrive when we're casting for that role at that time or what you would fit, it's hard to save. It used to be harder because it used to be a lot more. We would get like 20 or 30 a day. Now we get maybe 3 or 4 a day. We'll get postcards, but they're pretty much messed up. The mail's just trashing a lot of them, so it doesn't serve a good purpose, but it helps. It's cheap enough to get it out there, but primarily the assistant, your main assistant, goes through those and see if there's anything. The other day we got some pictures. A family took a picture of their little Asian babies. They were adorable. My assistant was like, made it a point to make sure I saw them. We'll get some good pictures in there, and she'll say, take a look at this one, or here's the mail. These people are great. But it's hard to remember them because if I had to keep all those headshots, there's no place to keep them anymore. Right. Agents used to have a room, just a huge room, and pay rent on a space just to be able to have a picture room to pull pictures, and they don't have those anymore. There's no hard copies in the business anymore.
Right. I mean, people still bring, for the most part, they'll still bring a headshot and resume.
Right, yeah.
But you're right. I mean, years ago, I would print 3,000 comp cards at a time and a couple of thousand headshots at a time. And now I'm doing, maybe 100 headshots, 200
right.
headshots at a time when I put a new one together, because you're right. agents aren't asking for 40 or 50 headshots or comp cards that they are going to have, expressed over to, a photographer's studio or an advertising agency.
Yeah, it's changed. It's really, I mean, we've lived through it, you and I, but it's a huge change from how we used to operate. But you have to know, and I'm sure you say this all the time, but you have to know how to use all these new social medias like we're using here to participate, be involved, learn, get educated, and then work it yourself. Are you tweeting with casting directors? I've actually met people that have tweeted stuff to me, and I'm not big on it, but it's actually helped me because I posted stuff and I've met people who I've actually had come in. Or they tweeted being in my office, and I see it, and they've actually just tweeted. So it's kind of cool, and, we like it. It's not in your face, but it's actually becoming social with the casting director, where you can actually have a relationship, and you don't have to be in their office, and it's on the casting director's time, which I never thought of before, but it's not intrusive. It's not jamming up your email box. And, there's other social medias that work.
So I guess, just to kind of wind things down here a little bit, I'm sure, and we talked a little bit about some of the things that actors can and should never do when they're showing up to an audition, like walk in there with a bad attitude, complain about things, because those, look, once again, this is a business, and when you have, 1,800 people that get narrowed down to 30 or 40, you can actually be very picky and choosy as to who you want to work with, because ultimately your reputation's on the line as well. If you bring somebody in who eventually gets cast, even though it was somebody else who might have made the final decision, if they turn out to be a real pain, you were part of that process. So along with having a good attitude, being prepared, showing up on time, are there other things that when people walk into your room and are about to audition, like if there are some questions that people ask that you think are good questions that make you think, yeah, this person knows what he's talking about? Like, for instance, I know sometimes if I'm auditioning for, let's say, a feature film, well, typically I'm not sent the entire script because the film is not, evolving around me if it's a, major feature film. So I might need to ask the casting director, what is my relationship with the person I'm reading this scene with? Because I just don't know who this person is. So, typically that would be a question that's important to me as an actor, and I would think that the casting director would appreciate it as well, because it makes me, seem like somebody who knows what they're doing. But I'm sure there must be questions that come up for you, or things that people do during the casting process that immediately makes you think, nah, this really isn't somebody that I want to even to submit to the director or somebody else. Can you even think of any incidences where people just did things that immediately made you think, I really don't want to work with this person?
My go-to for that is often, it's even sometimes later in the thing when we go to the callback and you explain everything to them, and then they walk in, and the minute they pass the threshold, they have no idea what was just said to them, and they kind of throw the casting director or assistant under the bus and act like they have no idea what was just said to them. So that when they do decide to maybe use them, the casting director and assistants, if the assistant happens to be there and they're allowed to chime in or they're asked, will often say, it makes it, we find it difficult to work with them because we gave them all the information outside, and then they walked in and pretended they had no idea. Now, if that's their gimmick to try and get in contact and work with the director, they could have said, yeah, they explained everything to me, but could you explain it just a little more detail? That would be, they're trying to engage the director at the effect of the relationship with the casting director and the assistant. And that will immediately trigger a reaction in a casting director and have them, during a discussion, probably try to not use them. However, the thing is, we want to get the job cast. So if they're really going for the person, we may say subtly, if there's 2 people in the running, or 3, and the others are just as good, you know what? The other 2 may be better because this one just doesn't seem to get it. We've explained it to them. We may even say we had a problem with them in the first call, just to save us from them going to set and then being one of those actors who, if they were a problem in the office like that, they're going to pull something on set maybe. Don't have that issue where your clients come back, because we are a result of that. They blame us if the actor doesn't work well on set. For some reason, it's our fault.
Right. I mean, I've been in situations where I've heard other actors complain about the copy, you know, the words in a commercial, you know, they really, somebody wrote this is horrible. Who wrote, you know, and I'm thinking, well, first of all, one of the writers from the ad agency might be sitting in the room. And besides that, look, it's our job as the actor. We're not writers, we're not critiquing. We're there to try to make this sound interesting. And to have somebody sit there and start complaining about the writing of the commercial just doesn't seem like a really good move in order to try to get hired on the project.
No, and like you said, in the room on a callback will be your director, your director's producer from the production company. From the ad agency is the agency producer, the copywriter, the person that wrote the copy, the person who created the concept of the copy, the creative guys or girls. So you've got 6 to 8 people in there that are all part of the whole recipe to make this thing come. And if you show up, you are really just the tool to make the words and lines be believable and become yours and get the message across. You are the message relayer. They have to be your words. They have to come off the paper as yours, and that's what they're looking for. So as you know, when you go to your audition, you become that role through their words. And you make their words come alive. If you are what makes their words come alive.
Exactly. Now, I'm curious, and I know we do have to wind things down here, but I'm really curious about this. Have you ever been in a situation where you've had 2 actors reading for a part, and one of the actors just doesn't seem to be doing a very good job? Maybe they're just very theatrical, way over the top, and the actor walks out, and the other actor walks over to you and says, "Hey, can I read this with somebody else? Because that was horrible." Have you ever had somebody ask you if they can read it again with somebody else?
Oh, all the time.
Really?
Yeah.
And what's your as a casting director, what's your reaction to that?
You know, you can usually tell who the better person is, and if there is a problem, oftentimes I'll actually say, let's keep, you know, hey, Aaron, can you stay? I need you to work on one more time. Keep you in the room, bring in the next person, explain to you that I really didn't like it, and oftentimes the actor will go, thanks, I was really having a hard time with them. So I could see that. I'll delete your other takes, and this would be your audition. And I'd make sure that it wasn't a detriment to you, because here I'm losing a trained actor. With another actor, could be trained or not, I don't, you know, hopefully they were. I mean, I brought them in, I looked at their resume, if it was the truth. Sometimes 2 people just don't blend. But when I do have that problem, yeah, especially if I have a kid working with you and it doesn't work, definitely I'm going to make sure that you shine. What I want is everybody to shine.
Right. But that's something that you would want to make that decision about. You're not really wanting the actor to say something to you.
I wouldn't mind if they said it, but I would make the choice. I've had people say it and realized it's the horrible one saying, I had a bad time with that actor, can I redo it? And I'm like, you just didn't get it anyway. Because the timing and everything, no matter what you did, the other actor was really good. You just didn't get it. So I'll often say, it's fine. It's usually interesting. A seasoned actor like yourself can probably overcome anybody you're working with, and sometimes even make them look okay, and I can see that the other person just did not get it. Yeah. But if I see that, I'm going to keep you on there to show, look at, the other actor just wasn't so great, but Aaron shined.
Yeah. I was just going to say, the hard part though is, if part of this scene is this relationship and the other person's just not giving anything and they're ice cold and distant and, no matter what the other person's doing, you're just not going to feel something together. So that's when the actor is hoping, like you said, that the casting director will jump in at some point and say, hey, would you mind sticking around? I need you to reach for something else.
Yeah, and this is a problem because when the casting director is not in the room and you're stuck with a session operator, they're just machines and they may not help you. So oftentimes it's creating a relationship with the camera operators when you go in. And I always say to people when I'm coaching and stuff, just go in and say, hi, how are you? And even if it's a lie, say, I was at another audition a few weeks ago that I can't remember where it was, but you were really helpful and I wanted to thank you. I don't remember what it was, but I remember your face and you were really helpful. Thanks. You've now just made a friend with that camera operator and they're going to make sure your audition looks great. Whether it takes 6 takes, 5 takes, lie for your success.
That's your next book.
Yeah. Lie your way to success.
That's funny. Well, listen, I want to thank you so much, sir, for taking the time and sharing the information. And if you would just give out your website again so people can learn more about your book and also your workshops, that would be wonderful. Like I said, it will be posted here, but just so people can hear it right now, that would be great.
Yeah, it's Stuart's Workshop, STUARTS workshop.com. And everything's on there. The book is outdated, but you can email me from there. And I'll give you, if you guys were on, just mention that, you were with us with Aaron, and we'll get you a discounted rate. So we'll just send it to you from our office. And it's not a hard copy. It's actually whatever those.
Paperback, right?
It's not. It's out of date. It's an ebook now.
It's an ebook. Got it.
It's an ebook, and it's a little outdated, but a lot of people still get some information. It still talks about film, but we're writing a new one, so we're just getting some of the basic information out to everyone that'll help them, especially people just coming into the business. And the workshops and stuff are on there. My email is on there. You can join my newsletter. So yeah, StuartsWorkshop.com. And you can also contact me through there.
And if people want to learn more about your casting, that email, that website address?
That's stonecasting.tv.
Cool.
All right.
I just want to thank you so much again for sharing this information. Your work is incredible. I mean, when people go to your website, they're going to see just tons of these, incredible commercials that you've worked on, and really, I really want to thank you so much. Really appreciate
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Cool. Well, I look forward to seeing you soon, too.
All right, take care.
See ya. Wow, I am really so happy to have Brenda here. I've known Brenda for a long time. We worked together on the East Coast when she was there, and Brenda moved. Actually, I think you were originally from California, weren't you?
Right. LA is home. So when I saw you on the East Coast, I was in the Navy on the East Coast. So I'm returning back home. Yes.
So here's what I would like to do. As an actor who moved back to LA, it would be really helpful for people to know, when you went back to LA, did you already have an agent in place, or did you go there and start searching for representation?
Well, I went to one of those conventions and showcases, and I wanted to either move to New York or LA when I was living on the East Coast. I knew I wanted to do this professionally. And so I did the showcases there, and there were about 5 people who were from Los Angeles who were interested in seeing me. So I said, I'm moving to LA. Okay. So it was pretty much 5 out of 5 said, when you get there, give me a call. Okay, so as soon as I got here, I called each one of them, and 1 responded out of the 5 who were interested.
That's a pretty good percentage.
Happened. Well, I thought, well, all of them seem pretty interested, in person back there, but it's like when you get here, it's a different story. No phone calls back or whatever. But the one that was interested is a great commercial agent, and I've been with them since. So I
Got
signed
it.
with them once I got here.
So for somebody, let's say, who is moving to LA on their own and they haven't made
Right.
any connections as of yet, what would you recommend for someone to do to go about trying to get representation?
Right. It is important, first of all, to have representation in Los Angeles to be credible as an actor. My best recommendations are for wherever you are in your hometown, go and research the agencies. You can go, backstage, the way it used to be called the Ross Report, now the call sheet. There's a whole listing of agents by state, and then you can look on the SAG-AFTRA website, and they have a whole listing there. And then really, it's just looking, in your hometown. You can do this before you get here and start researching who you think you would fit. Obviously, I wouldn't go to an agency that represents children. Okay, I wouldn't, I mean, there's some of them are that specific. Some of them represent only union talent. Some of them will represent union and non-union. So it's you want to do all that research before you come out, so you can pinpoint those you want to get in touch with that you feel you would make a good match with, because it is a partnership, a relationship. And then you get in touch with them. Either you tell them, hey, I'm coming out, I'm moving out, or you get in touch with them when you get here. I mean, I'll tell you, a lot of people will go live in Burbank. Most of the auditions are in Hollywood. You do need a car. You do need a reliable car. It's not like in New York where you can go in the subway or take a cab. You do need because everything is so spread out here. Burbank is pretty safe. It's a reasonable place to live. It's close to some of the studios. You can go to West Hollywood is good. Anywhere in the Hollywood area. People can venture out to San Fernando Valley, which is reasonable. And of course, if you want to go closer to the beach, Venice, Santa Monica, it's quite more expensive, or the Beverly Hills area. But normally in the Hollywood area, some people, downtown Los Angeles is up and coming. People are starting to move there, but generally, I would go on like westsiderentals.com or Craigslist and just check out what the roommate situations are like and what the one bedrooms are like. I just did a check yesterday for this today, and I found like for a studio, it was anywhere that the low end for $700 to $1,200, in the area, and for like a 2-bedroom, if you want to do the roommate, it can go up to $1,500 on the low end to $2,000. My friends who are actors who do the roommate situation, it's usually about $800 to $1,000 a month that they're paying. But the Burbank, the West Hollywood, those are the closer areas to get to. Fairfax District, Mid Wilshire.
And would you so basically then, in order to survive, and I realize like everybody has different standards, everybody has different expenses in their life. So, it almost seems like if you had, I don't know, $3,000, $3,500 a month that you had access to, that could get you through the month. And that would include, and actually I'm going to be talking with Jason later about classes specifically, but, that would help with all your expenses, meals, travel, gas, and things like that. Would you say, and once again, I realize those numbers are going to change, but somewhere like in the $3,000 ballpark, somebody could.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, to live on that's pretty honest, because it is expensive to live here. Gas is more expensive here. Even to register your car, if you're going to stay here, it is expensive.
What does it cost to register a car in LA?
Oh, it depends on the car. I mean, I have a 2000. It was I just re-registered it for $98.
Wow.
That was a 13-year-old car, and thank God it runs really great. But that gives you an idea.
Yeah.
Gas is over $4, $4.50, depending on where you get it.
Wow. So basically, when you're first coming out, You want to make sure that you get connected with either a manager or an agent. Got to get a place to live. We talked about that. You also are going to need a great headshot. And what a lot of people don't understand is you might, be living in Texas, you might be living in Colorado, you might be living on the East Coast, and you might have a headshot that works really well for you in those markets. But Los Angeles has its own look, its own style. And so
Right.
you really want to have a headshot, or if you're doing commercial modeling work, you're going to want some commercial shots done by an LA photographer. Do you have any suggestions on how people can go about trying to find photographers?
Yes. You need a good headshot when you come out because that's going to help get your agent. That's what they need to see. Once you get your agent and your manager, they have their own photographers. They know what sells, and they're going to want you to get some new headshots done. It's not like these are the suggestions, and if you want to go and do some, go out and find. That's what because when I got here, I love Joe Hansen in New York, okay, but he's not here in LA, so I trusted my agency gave me like 4 or 5 photographers, and if I didn't like them, I can go and use, somebody else. But I trusted their judgment. They know what sells, and so I went with one of theirs. And that's pretty much the norm. Once you get your agents, they're going to tell you, this is who we recommend. One thing I didn't know when I first came out here is when you get your agent, like I have a commercial and a theatrical agent. I come from a theater background, so I thought theatrical meant, theater, stage work, and obviously it doesn't, and that's film, TV. Then you have your commercial area, you have your print area, and sometimes, ideally, you would like an agent to represent you across the board, how they call it, across the board. But sometimes, it doesn't work out that way. They love you commercially, they love you for feature film, but they already have somebody who looks like you, or a few people who look like you in the print area. Like, so they'll only represent you in these 2 areas. So then now, if you want to do some commercial print, then you seek representation just for that. So that's why when some people will say, oh, I have one agent or one manager, and then, oh, I have, an agent for commercial, an agent for print, and a different agent for theatrical. That's pretty common also.
Yeah, because it's interesting in Los Angeles, there, as in other markets, sometimes people might freelance with, 1 or 2 agents in that particular area. In Los Angeles, you can only have 1 agent per category, just like what you were saying. So you're not going to have 2 TV commercial agents in Los
No.
Angeles. You're only going to have 1. Now, with let's say a headshot in the LA area, and once again, I realize these numbers can vary all over the place, but just to give people a general idea of how much they should be saving up, do you have any guesses as to a ballpark idea? How much does it cost to get a headshot in LA?
Yeah, but ballpark, they usually go by the number of looks, and hopefully people will take your class so you can talk more extensively. You do need your commercial look, you do need a theatrical look, and et cetera. You need a good 3 is good, or 4 different looks that that's sellable. And you can get them for less, but the ballpark is about $300 to $400. I've heard of them going up to 5 to 7, which is just anything over 5 to me is too expensive. But the ballpark, from what I'm hearing, what other people are paying, what I paid is $300 to $400 for like 3 looks.
Got it. Now, as far as having a manager, would you recommend when somebody is first coming to Los Angeles, should they be looking to get a manager first who will help connect them with an agent? Or do you think it's okay just to go directly to an agent?
You'll probably get different responses to this because I told you one of those 5 people that was interested. One was a manager, and going to some casting director workshops. And who do they see? Do they see submissions from agencies only, or how open are they to managers? And the ones that I've been to, they're very open to managers. But my understanding for the managers are those that are manage people with some credit, where they're pretty much guiding your career, where your agent is going to submit you to get your work.
Right. Right. And it's also true the manager, I mean, technically is not supposed to submit you directly to a casting director. They're always supposed to go through an agent. So, for somebody who's completely fresh, they've never worked in LA, they don't have contacts there. I mean, that's why it can be helpful to get a manager first, if that's possible, and then the manager can help connect you with the right agents. But I guess if you can't find a manager and you can get an agent, that would be a great way to do it as well. Now, as far as being in the union, being in SAG-AFTRA, is that something that you think is important for an actor to already be in before they get to LA, or do you think it might be actually better for them if they're not a union member yet? Wait till you get to LA, try to get some more experience doing, non-union work in LA until you feel like you're ready to join the union.
Right. That's a good question, and this is one I would suggest to actors to really think about, because joining the union, I just looked it up here in LA, now is $3,000. And they do give you a payment plan of 2 years. So if you want to, some of the agencies, the good agencies, will only take union actors. There are some that won't. So, again, with that research. Joining the union is great because there is the prime time, TV shows, the commercials and the residuals, everything that those union gigs call for. But honestly, there's a lot of non-union work here too. For commercials, they're buyouts, so that you don't get those residuals that you would if it was a union gig. So I know a lot of people. I became a union member prior to coming here, and I think that's what helped me get such a good commercial agent. I know a lot of non-union actors who are working a lot of non-union gigs. Saving their money. That's not
something I would recommend, just because, I mean, besides the fact that it's illegal, you signed an agreement once, and that's why it's important to know whether you're ready to join the union, because once you join, the number one rule is you can only take on union actors.
Do union gigs.
And
once you join, you can't do those non-union gigs.
Right. And if you're caught, there are all kinds of problems with that. So, and that's why, I think, and I too, I've been a union member for a long time. And I think that if you aren't in the union and you're moving to LA, maybe it's better to try to get some experience doing, some non-union independent films or student films, or whether it's non-union TV commercials or training films, whatever you can get your hands on to get some experience, to have more contacts with other actors in the area, to help build up a resume, to help build up a reel from actual work. And then when you feel like you're ready, then join the union, because, and you made a really good point, a lot of people don't realize that when you do non-union commercials, except for some really, really unusual situations. But if you're not a union member and you do a commercial, like you said, it's a buyout and you get paid one fee. Where union members make their most money, it's through the residuals from TV commercials. Because every 13 weeks, as long as that commercial is running, you're going to get a check sent to you. So, I guess, the important thing is when you're going to a market like LA, don't feel like you've got to be a star the next day. You want to take your time and get experience. And when you are doing some of the non-union work, it does give you an opportunity to network and meet with other people as well. And,
right. I didn't know. Go ahead. No, I just wanted to make sure that I hope I didn't give the impression that if you are in the union, that it's okay to do non-union work. That it's not. That you're not supposed to. Okay.
No, absolutely. No, you mentioned that some people do, and I've heard of that as well. But once you become a union member, and even if sometimes you hear, and you'll hear this where people might say, oh, don't worry, it's just a training film, it's in-house for a particular company, nobody's going to know about it. you know what, don't play with it. I mean, besides the fact that, you know, you have an agreement that as a union member, you're only going to take on union work, but even besides that, it's just not good sneaking around and doing that kind of stuff. So, no, I agree with you 100%. Just as far as people trying to find other ways of getting jobs, earlier with Stuart, we had talked about, you know, Actors Access or LA Casting and things like that. Are there any other places that you can think of where people can try to submit themselves or go out and try to search for work in order to try to get more experience?
Yeah, he mentioned a couple, and those are the main ones here at lacasting.com and Actors Access. There is a third one, castingfrontier.com, and those are pretty much the main ones, and you'll find a lot of non-union work on those, and a lot of union work, a lot of shorts, a lot of independents that you can submit for.
Well, I know also, I was just going to jump in real quickly and just say, I know like on Backstage.com, sometimes you will hear about projects that are coming up that would be helpful. And I'm sure there are also, you know, meetup groups that you can be a part of. And there's Women in Film and Video, which are also, you know, it's a great organization. And they're literally around the world, and they have meetings, and you know, you can network and you can find out about projects. And I mean, what I've learned is that so much of getting the work and making the contacts, it's being out there, being in the right place. So, you know, sometimes people say, that person was just lucky, you know, they just happened to be at the right place at the right time. Well, you put yourself to be in the right place at the right time. And on top of that, you've got to have the skills to make it happen, because you can make all the contacts in the world. If you don't have the skills, then it's not going to do you a whole lot of good.
And the training part was, go ahead. Yeah, you know, he mentioned training, which is great. I went to a workshop a couple of weeks ago, and they're really looking for, one said, is improv skills. That like, oh, okay, that was an eye opener. And that's just the buzz is just really get some good improv skills under your belt. A couple of other things we were talking about. There's diversity groups in town besides Women in Film and TV. I'm a veteran, so there are a few veteran groups in town that are above the line, below the line, actors, producers. So whatever, you know, a lot of church groups that you know, that are great networking groups here. So there's all kinds of different niches wherever you fall into that has some type of, you know, acting, networking to get involved. I'm curious,
what is the organization for veterans for acting?
Oh, there's a few. Well, there's one called Veterans in Film and Television. They've just opened a group in New York for the people in New York. If you're a veteran, you're eligible to join. And in that group, there's a subgroup for actors. But overall, it's that, you know, if you're a writer, director, producer, comedian, if you're a veteran, it's a great networking tool. And a lot of what I've seen, people are producing their own work.
That's actually that's a really interesting point too, because there are a lot of well-known actors now who are, you know, stars in movies, really got their start from writing and creating their own film because they couldn't find any work for themselves, so they decided, you know what, well, I better make something for myself, and that's how it worked. And actually that's a really interesting point.
And you find a lot of people here creating. No, you find a lot of people here creating their own thing because they're waiting. You know, they're going to audition, and even after you have an agent, and most of your work is looking for work. You know, and I've met actors who were tired of auditioning after a few years and became, you know, worked in the studios, or they go into becoming agents or casting directors or writers. Or like, oh, I have this niche I didn't know I had, or marketing. So if you wanted just to work in show business in general, a lot of you know, people who just didn't want to do, you know, work the acting life here, transitioned into those. areas.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point because, sometimes
Hmm.
we go to a place like LA and we are, have this tunnel vision of, I want to be an actor, I want to be a model, this is what I want
Uh-huh.
to do. And I think you make a really interesting point of keep your options open and keep your
Hmm.
heart and brain open because you never know what might hit you and make you decide, you know what, maybe I want to, work in wardrobe on movie sets. Maybe,
Exactly.
I want to be a director. Maybe I do want to be a writer. Maybe I want to produce. Maybe I want to build sets. Who knows where things might take you. But
Hmm.
the fact is, if you're really thinking about making the move, make sure you do it and do it in a smart way and keep all of your options open. And the very last thing I was just going to ask, and then we'll wind it up. I've heard from a number of people where they talk about it's really helpful to have a certain amount of money set aside so that when you do go to a city like Los Angeles, you don't fall into the trap that a lot of people do where they basically came to LA penniless. They have to find a daytime job to support themselves. And then what starts happening is they don't have time for their classes. They don't have time to try to
Hmm.
get representation. They don't have the finances for a headshot, and things like that. And basically, they've changed locations, but they're in the same place they were before. So, I mean, I've heard, people say, look, make sure you've got enough money set aside for at
Yep.
least 3, 4, 5, 6 months so that you can just devote all of your time into getting acclimated, getting representation, getting your materials together, getting the classes. Does that seem to make sense for you as well?
Absolutely. I actually went to this other workshop that, and I don't know how they came up with this number, but they said people that come in from out of town usually run out of money within 8 months and go back home. So I don't know where they came up with the 8 months, but that seems to be about right. One thing just to touch on, for the just to get by money, um, when you come here, go ahead and register with Central Casting. Go ahead and do some background work. There are it's not like other places where like a casting director will call you for background. They have several calling services here in Los Angeles that do specific just that will call you for background work. And it's good to do that, so to acclimate yourself with the city, to know the terms on set, know that when you have a call time at 10 o'clock, you're not parking the car at 10 o'clock, you allow for traffic, that you're ready to go, wardrobe in hand at 10 o'clock, just
And
to
just
get
so
acclimated.
everybody, excuse me, just so everybody knows, Central
Uh-huh.
Casting, so that's a company that they specifically are geared to hiring extras. And there's a office in
Hmm.
LA, there's one in New York. And just so people aren't confused, there is a casting company slash agency in Washington, D.C. called Central Casting, but that's Central Casting USA. It's very, very different. But no, that is a good point. And I want to make sure that while you are here, if there are any questions, Joel, that have come in, I want to make sure we do get to those before we move on.
Yeah, absolutely. Aaron asked a question, and this is more regional, and I think both you guys might have some insight into this. Excuse me. Do you know of any good commercial acting training in the Maryland, Baltimore, D.C. area that will transfer well to Los Angeles or New York City?
Here's my take. Look, great acting is great acting no matter where you are studying. But just like with what Stuart said earlier, when he's looking at people's resumes, he wants to see what kind of training you've had, and he wants to be able to recognize the teachers. So there could be an incredible teacher in the DC, Pennsylvania, Maryland area, but Stuart Stone probably isn't going to be familiar with that person. So my thought is, certainly study with people here, but I think even more importantly, once you get to Los Angeles, and I'm going to be talking more about classes with Jason, our next guest, um, I would make sure that you get heavily involved in some really, really good classes in LA if that's where you're going to be ending up. The same thing holds true for New York as well, just because the names really mean a lot to people who aren't familiar with you. So, and if you want to contact me privately, I'd be more than happy to share with you some of the people that I do know. But if you're thinking about going to LA, I think it's crucial that you get connected with some LA teachers and LA classes.
Tommy asks, can I fly out to Los Angeles to audition for upcoming sitcoms, etc.? And is there a way to know when auditions are, or are they precast? So he's basically asking, can he commute to LA and do auditions?
You want to start off with that one, Brenda?
Oh, I think the Stewart had a good one. They cast pretty fast, and they want to see you here. To fly to I'm one of those that you need to be here for the
Yeah.
audition, because they're pretty much the auditions. You don't get a week's notice. They can call you if it's usually the next day or that morning for that day. It's
Yeah.
rare. It's rare that it's a few days or a week before.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. Look, there are some exceptions to the rules. Sometimes there might be a big
Mhm.
project, they can't find the person, they open it up and they'll either travel to you, to different states throughout the country. Sometimes you can email in your auditions. You can do it at home, but in Los Angeles, you've got to be there because just like Brenda was saying and
Mhm.
Stuart was saying, especially for commercials, the turnaround time is really fast.
Yeah.
And also it gets really expensive because, you might say, okay, well, I live in, Des Moines, Iowa, and I hear about an audition, look, I'll just drop everything and fly out. And maybe you will do that once and you'll spend, $900 on a round trip flight, not including, a hotel and transportation to the airport and food for the day and all that stuff. And then you fly back home. And let's say in the best case scenario, if this is for a feature film or a TV show, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 days later, you might get a call back. So now you've got to fly back out again. And there could be multiple callbacks. I've heard of people having 7, 8, 9, 10 callbacks, depending on the part and the project and things like that. So I would never say it's impossible. It will never work. It's really tough. And most agents and managers, they want to work with people who are local. So I wouldn't recommend doing that. I would try to get as much work on a local level as you possibly could. And actually,
And
I'm
then,
sorry, I just wanted to jump in for one
go
other
ahead.
second.
Yeah.
If you find that maybe you can take, let's say if you are a student, maybe you can spend 2 months in Los Angeles or 3 months in Los Angeles during the summer, or if you have a certain kind of job that will allow you to spend a few months in the area. That's another thing. And then maybe people will work with you during that time period because you are there. But the important thing is they want to see you in person. They really do.
If I can jump on what you just said for the students, Aaron, because I used to work for a show where I was hired the interns here in Los Angeles. And it's a great opportunity if you're a student from all over the country to come and intern on these different shows. And especially if it's your last semester and you can stay once you're done, because they want to see that now you're available to work full time. But it's a great learning experience to see exactly how the show is produced, see what the actors go through, writers, directors, editors, from start to finish. If it's an option for you, highly recommend that.
Yeah, and that's probably a way to also connect with people in the industry. So last question for this section. This is from Robert.
Right.
He writes in, do you think the modeling acting conferences are a good way to break into the industry? There are typically several of these yearly on the East and West coasts.
Yeah, I mean those are options. I'm a guest speaker at some of them, and there are people who make connections. And Brendan is a perfect example. Um, People who've made contacts. I tell you, the important thing for any kind of event is to make sure you are very prepared, so that when you are seen by the industry professionals, you're really good. You know what you're doing, and make sure that if you're trying to work in the LA or even if it's the New York market, that you are in a position to be able to pick up and move there because once again, they're going to want you to be there. So, well, Brenda, I just wanted to thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
And I really hope that our paths cross again in the near future. And I look forward to talking with you soon. But really, I really appreciate it.
Fun. Thank you. Thanks for all you do. And for those that haven't taken Aaron's modeling and commercial class, highly recommend it. I get nothing for this promo, but it's really good. So hopefully, let me know next time you're on LA.
Great. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks. Good luck, everybody.
Thanks, Brenda. You're welcome to stick around, Brenda. Just if you could close off your webcam, I'm going to go ahead and mute you. You're welcome to stay as long as you like to continue to join us. We're going to go to Jason now, who's our third guest today, and Jason Lott is waiting in the wings. Jason, if you're able to turn on your webcam, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you, and we're going to get you all set up here and make sure you're able to be our panelist today. There you are. Can you hear me okay, Jason?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead and say that again. Say your name or something. There's a little bit of a delay, potentially.
Sure. This is Jason Lott, phoning in from Los Angeles.
Fantastic. Okay, there's no delay now. We've got everything up to speed. So, Aaron, we're going to go ahead and do a kind of a formal intro.
This is exciting. I was just going to say, this is exciting for me. The last time I saw Jason, he was tying me up in a chair and kidnapping me. There was an independent film that we did that was it was a great experience and really not only loved working with Jason, but he's just a really nice guy. He was really fun to hang out with. And Jason made the move from the D.C., Northern Virginia area to L.A. So I couldn't think of a better person to ask about what the experience is like and how you go about doing it. So first, would you just let people know how long have you been in LA?
Just around a year. Moved out last July.
And I remember when we were talking last, you had mentioned that you had a very specific game plan of basically taking a year and kind of doing some very specific things to getting adjusted to the area. Would you share with other people exactly what you did and what your thoughts were?
Yeah, sure. Happy to. I mean, as always, the plan that you came up with first, it has to be scuttled at some point because you really had no idea what you were doing. But I really wanted to make sure that before I moved, I felt like I was prepared. And so whenever I walked into an audition or to meet with an agent or a manager, that people will look at me and say, hey, this guy's a professional, he knows what he's doing, we can trust him in the room. And so what I wanted to do was make sure that I had a headshot ready to go, resume ready to go. I was still working on my reel at the time, but wasn't really ready for that yet. And so those were the things I wanted in place because I've been working in Washington, D.C. as an actor for 12 years. And so I had a pretty good reputation there, and I knew the things that I needed in order to be successful, which were essentially just you need to have headshots and monologues ready to go at a moment's notice. But other than that, you didn't need a whole lot of other things. Los Angeles, obviously a different market. So what I found when I got out here, and I was taking the time to make sure that my website was up to date. And so I worked with a web developer to get my new website up and running, jasonlott.com, if you want to take a look at it. It needs to be updated a little bit still because the other thing that I did was get new headshots when I got out here. I had some that I'd taken on the East Coast maybe 4 months before I came out, and they were fine, but a lot of people that I talked to were like, these aren't really working out here. And so they were recommending that I get new headshots. And maybe we can talk about this later, Aaron, but one thing that I discovered out here is that as opposed to other markets, you probably need about 10 headshots altogether. You probably need 5 for legit theatrical and 5 for commercial, because really you want to have different looks that you can show. Obviously, you're still you, and you don't need to do costumes. You don't need to dress up like a cop or a fireman necessarily for acting work. You might need it for other things. But you need to have 5 different looks that show, hey, I'm the guy next door, I'm the office worker, I'm the whatever it happens to be. So I worked on getting new headshots done. And I worked with...
if I could just jump in for 1 second, Jason. So how did you go about... Well, first of all, let me just back up for 1 second.
Sure.
Did you feel that you absolutely needed a demo reel before you started contacting agents? Or do you think that people could still find either a manager or an agent even without a demo reel?
You can find one without it, although it's helpful. The maxim that I've sort of learned out here is it's better to have no demo reel than a bad demo reel. So, I mean, I'd collected stuff over the years from various things that I had done, and it wasn't necessarily helpful. So when I was working with the demo reel editor to put mine together, there was a lot to work with, but nothing that really should have been worked with. So he did his best, and there's a cut of it up on the website now, which I think is a shortened cut of what he put together. So it's not necessary to have a demo reel, but it is going to be helpful to you. So because no one knows you, and so if they look at your demo reel, they can say, okay, this person knows what they're doing in front of a camera. They can memorize lines. They can bring personality to a role. So it's important to have one, but not right away, especially if you're just starting out in Los Angeles, especially if you're just starting off as an actor. You'll be considered what's known as a developmental client, and the agent or the manager is going to work with you to get you in a position where, like, okay, now you should really have a demo reel because we need to start sending you out and send clips in advance.
And the other thing too, by having a demo reel, it shows that other people have trusted you enough to hire you
Yes.
for a
Yes.
job, which is helpful. So for somebody who, let's say, is really just beginning and they haven't really done any work, would you say it's better? Because I know I just heard you say it's better not to have, a bad one that, or, none at all. But if for somebody who hasn't done anything, would it be okay to put together a demo reel of their own monologue, or do a scene with somebody else on a high school stage or a college stage, or would you just say, you know what, just
No.
wait until you get some jobs? And
I would say don't wait until you get jobs, and don't do monologues, and don't do stage productions. Nobody wants to see it. They want to see legit things that look like they might have been on television or on a movie. And if you haven't, and this is the other thing, you may get hired for jobs, and you might get hired to do things that sort of are the types of characters that you typically play, but maybe they don't show you in the best light. For example, maybe there's a tech issue, or maybe the director wanted something a little bit different. So there are two things that you can do. One of which is there are a lot of demo reel creation companies that are out there, and you can pay them sometimes a huge chunk of money, and they will write, direct, cast, produce, and edit demo reel footage for you. And there are two things. You can do like a larger demo reel, which might be anywhere from a clip might be a minute and a half or something like that. Usually that's a little too long. You can also put together a sizzle reel for you. And so you're going to have like a 20-second clip, and you might have 3 20-second clips. So you've got 3 scenes showing you in different light, like this is your dramatic sizzle reel versus your comedic sizzle reel. And those will run about a minute apiece. And that's something easy for casting people to watch. So that's one thing, is a demo reel creation company. And the other is creating your own. And a lot of people say, oh, just get a friend who has a camera and write something and put together. Well, that's kind of true, but if you're just doing that, then it's going to show. So you really want to see if you can find someone who can help you write a scene, or find someone like through Craigslist who has a camera, has some experience, is trying to get more experience. They're willing to do it for free in exchange for the footage, so they can put it on on their own sort of reel, their own directorial reel. So you can try and find people to work with you in order to create demo reel content. And that's something that I've been working on for a while. My friend and I just shot some stuff last weekend. I'm in the process of editing 4 scenes right now, and we've got about 6 or 7 other scenes that we're going to do. We're going to do that in a couple weekends. So we're working very hard to create our own content so we can show casting directors, producers, showrunners, anybody who's willing to look at them, oh, this is a type of character that she can play, or this is what he looks like in a sitcom situation or in a procedural situation, something along those lines. So I'd say those are the 2 options to create your own content, rather than waiting around to get good content.
And I was just going to jump in with 2 things. Would you just, because you used a term that people should know about, would you explain more what a showrunner is?
Yeah, a showrunner is going to be somebody like the guy who created what's his name? Vince.
Ball or Uh,
Vince
so,
Gilligan, right? Who created Breaking Bad? Kurt Sutter, who created Sons of Anarchy. Shonda Rhimes, who created Grey's Anatomy and Scandal and all those sorts of things. It's a person who is the creator of the whole concept of the show and sort of runs it. Might have been a writer, is also a director, also is a producer. Has their hands completely submerged in the pie.
right. Got it. And and just to kind of add to what you're saying, I think it also could be helpful for people to contact some universities or
Sure.
colleges where
Yeah.
they have, different types of film classes, and maybe you could connect yourself with some student projects as well, where, especially if the student film is a well written, well shot film, that's something else that you could use, on a
That's right.
demo reel.
And actually, that's what I ended up doing. For any of you that are members of SAG-AFTRA already, when you do move out here, you can sign up for the SAG-AFTRA Conservatory. It's $35 a year, and what you can do, and you can go to classes for free that are held at AFI, but it also puts you in the mix for AFI student films. And AFI and USC grad films are probably considered a lot of the gold standard of student films out here. So I did that when I first moved out last year. My first audition was for an AFI student film. I got cast in it, had a great time. I become buddies with the director. I did another student film with him, and he shot my demo reel stuff over the weekend. So you create these relationships with people, and student films is a great way to go about it. I mean, I've done 3 of them so far in the year that I've been out here, among other things. But it's a great way to meet people, especially the up and coming people. Like the guy I worked with, he's probably going to be the next Tim Burton. So he's quirky and completely talented. So that's a great way to get to know people and to get additional footage for your reel, which might not be something that is necessarily going to be seen on TV.
Now, how exactly do the agents use the reel? I know it could be helpful to, when you're pitching yourself to a manager or an agent, but do agents actually send the reel out to directors and producers?
Yeah, they do. There are a couple different philosophies for how to go about it. Um, I've been to a talk with the guys who run Casting About, which is part of the Actors Access, I believe, is the relationship there. And those guys were talking about what it is that casting directors actually want to see from the agents and the managers when they send things. And apparently, what the casting directors want to see, they just want to see clips. They want to see a 20-second. Let's say that that they're casting on NCIS, and they need a quirky-looking computer programmer guy, okay, which is probably something along my type. So my agent or manager would send just a 20-second clip. Oh, this is Jason as the quirky IT guy who's being interrogated by Mark Harmon or whatever it is. Somebody say, oh, okay, this is the type of thing this guy can do. We've seen he can do it on film. Let's pull him in and see if he can do it, in front of camera for us. So casting directors just want to see a tiny 20-second clip, but agents and sometimes managers are just, because they're so busy pitching, a lot of times they'll just click the link and send the whole demo reel, which is like a minute, minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes max.
Yeah.
And that is honestly, and Stuart could probably talk more about this, that is so much time that a casting director does not have. They are probably not going to watch the entire thing. They're going to watch the first 5-10 seconds, get a sense of you, and then move on. So
Absolutely.
short clips is really what it needs to be, and they need to be targeted clips to exactly what the casting is. Otherwise, no one cares.
And, it's got to be something that you're great in, because sometimes people make a mistake, whether it's an actor's reel or, if you do voiceover work, sometimes people try to make it seem as if they can do everything, and they might have some things that they're really good at on that clip, or they might have some things that they're okay with, but they just want to show this wide range. And it's just really important. Stick with what you're best at, because people have a tendency to remember the worst part of whatever you're submitting to them. So, whether it's short, that's fine, but just keep it as your best work. Now, something else also that we were talking about, when you first got here, part of the strategy was to get connected with some really good classes.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you were saying that you can just get inundated because there are so many people out there who are offering classes. first of all, I guess the first step is how do you hear about the classes? And then from there, how do you start deciding and weeding them out and figuring out which ones are best for you?
Yeah, that's a great question, Aaron. It really depends on what it is that you think you need. Like, for example, for me, I've been working as an actor for 12 years. So creating a character, knowing how to memorize lines, knowing how to do a cold read, those are skill sets that I already have. And so when I came out, I wasn't necessarily looking for classes to teach me how to do that. There are plenty of teachers that will teach you how to do that. But for me, I was like, okay, I've already got that under control. So what are the other things that I need? One great place to look is Backstage.com. They have a complete list of all the different types of classes that are out here in different studios. And I would go on the Backstage forums, and there's one specifically about acting classes, and I just happened to pull it up. You can there's a great list, and it breaks it down from cold reading and auditioning, commercials, improv, and then scene study and acting technique for on-camera type things. So that's where I would look, and you can check the boards, and there's some really good people in there that'll say, this one, not so much, but a lot of these are great, and it just depends on what you're looking for. So I do that for broad strokes anymore. Really focusing on what you want. Stuart kind of mentioned it a little bit, and so did Brenda, in terms of improv training. And improv is becoming a basic skill set or a basic class that you need to have taken out here. I took Upright Citizens Brigade's 101 and 201, and I formed an improv practice group that I work with every week just to keep my improv skills up. Because certainly for commercial casting, they want to see that you can improv. They want to be able to say, okay, this is what the copy is, but you can make it your own. And that means when you get in front of camera, you take the substance of it, but make it you, make it personable, make it whatever speaks best to you. So they want to see that you have that talent in the audition room, and then that you can do it on the day when you're on set. So for commercials anyway, you've got to take an improv class. UCB and Groundlings are the two top, and I've heard that in terms of commercials, Upright Citizen Brigade is the class that you should take.
Got it. And for classes, and I realize these are going to vary as well, but if somebody's trying to figure out their budget, how much to save up, can you give us like a general idea as to what costs are? Just so, I mean, we're talking about $1,000, for,
Well,
a couple weeks or.
so some of them I think can be, especially if you're signing up for like a long-term thing. For example, UCB runs $400 for a session, and when I say session, it's an 8-week session.
Oh, okay.
So it's 8 classes at 3 hours apiece, and then I forget if it's 8 classes and then a performance on UCB stage, or it's 7 classes and then a performance on UCB stage. But essentially, I think it's 8 classes and then a performance, and that's $400. And if you want to go all the way through their program, there are 4. There's 101, 201, 301, and 401, so that's $1,600 right there if you want to go through UCB's program. You don't necessarily have to. But
Could you tell us what that stands for? Do you know what those initials stand for?
Upright Citizens Brigade
Okay, got it.
is UCB. Yeah. And there's and to the caller or the questioner who had asked before about classes to take in the DC area, they do. I mean, UCB also is in New York, and they have a very strong program there. So it might be worth it to, if you can, find a class that you can take in New York. I used to take I took an audition class in New York, and I would take the Megabus up one day and take the class at night, and I'd bring the Megabus home the next day so I could start the next day. I didn't get a whole lot of sleep, but it is a way to get some New York training under your belt, even if you're living in the DC area.
And those credits will look good on your resume under training because people will be familiar with it even in LA.
That's right.
So you're taking classes which, and the thing that's interesting when you're taking classes, it's not even just the information that you learn, but it's the contacts that you're making as well.
Yeah.
And you find out from other actors, who are some of the headshot photographers, who are going to be good for commercial shots, who are some of the managers or agents that you want to try to contact. So it's a lot more than just taking a class and learning. So now let's say you're at a point, you've come to town, you're taking classes, maybe you've put together a headshot, you're working on a reel. Now you want to find representation. Now, did you go in search of a manager as well as an agent, or did you go directly to an agent?
Uh, I was trying kind of for whatever I could get.
Uh-huh.
So, one of the things that I did was, and we can talk about this if we have time, but there are various workshops, and workshops are a huge thing in Los Angeles, and it's a way to sort of get you in front of industry people. So I took a fall industry showcase last year, and it was a 2-night performance with a couple rehearsals beforehand. And on each night, you would be seen, you and a scene partner would be seen by 12 industry folks, so 24 people altogether. And there would be a mix of agents and managers and producers and casting directors. So I did that last fall, and from that, I was able to sign with a manager and also with a commercial agent. So that's kind of how I went about it, because it's a difficult thing to do, and getting representation when you first get here maybe isn't the first step that you should take. I really think that you should take the time to make sure you are solid in terms of your craft, and also solid in terms of the things like a headshot, a website, a demo reel. So when you walk into those offices and you have a meeting with an agent or a manager, you're not going to look like you just stepped off the bus from Wisconsin. Like you're going to say, I'm a legitimate professional. You can trust me to know what I'm doing, and here are the things that show that I can back up that statement. So I would say it might not be the first thing you want to do. Make sure you got your ducks in a row first before you go and do it. But it's not an easy thing to do. So
Yeah, and I'm curious. So when you set up a meeting, you're going to be sitting down with a manager. What kind of things are you thinking about as far as strategies go when you have that actual meeting? Like, did you
right.
have a list of questions set up, or did you try to prepare some of the questions that might be asked of you?
Yeah, you want to walk in totally prepared, and you want to have questions that you want to ask. I mean, there are some questions that you shouldn't be asking. I mean,
Like
first of
what? I'm
all,
curious.
uh, you shouldn't be asking how many people like me do you have on your roster? Because think about it, from an agent's perspective, if they already have 20 of you, why are they calling you in? They're not, because they have 20 of you already. So, and they don't know you, so they don't know that you're amazing, even though you might be. So they're calling you in because they have a need for you. So, because think about it, it's a reciprocal relationship. Like you need the agent or manager in order to get you out there. They need you in order to make money. So they need to have people that they like and can trust and that they think are marketable. So if they're calling you in, they probably already have an idea that you would be marketable. So don't ask them, what do you think? Like, how many media you already have, or because you should be doing that research anyway on IMDb Pro. It's not always up to date, but they have complete rosters of the agents and managers, so you can see who they're managing or representing.
And
But I would
sometimes,
sorry, go ahead, Aaron. Yeah.
I was just going to say, for some agents, you can also go to their website.
Mhm.
Sometimes you can see the talent that they represent. Not always.
Right.
Sometimes you need a password that's only given out to people that are, casting or hiring. But sometimes you can, and that will also give you a better sense of who they're working with, the types. But don't let that fool you, because you might look at it and say, wow, all these people are, they all look like, models, and they all have great bodies, and they're young. And so why is this person calling me in? Well, maybe because they need somebody who looks like you, and that's why they're bringing you in. So don't get discouraged. But sometimes that can be helpful just to give you a better idea of some of the successes they've had with people.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, because, and what Aaron says is absolutely true. Uh, you may look similar to other people, but there is only one you, and you have your own unique characteristics and personality, which you are going to bring to a role. So, for example, my commercial agent called me in. We were having our first meeting. He said, "I've got a young version of you, an older version of you, a really fit and chiseled version of you, but I don't have you." So, like, all those guys might have kind of looked like me. Maybe they didn't have a large a forehead as I have, but they might have kind of looked like me. But they didn't. He didn't have something that was me, which is a sort of quirky, average Joe guy next door, IT professional, type guy. So, it depends on exactly on what it is that they're looking for. So don't be discouraged. Certainly, when you look at a roster and see, oh, these people should be on the cover of some magazine, they need you because, real life is not filled with models. It's filled with regular looking folks. So,
And they don't want to waste their time because just like you said, they make their living by taking a percentage off of any bookings that you get. So if you're not working and they don't think that you're going to make them money, they're not going to waste their time.
that's right.
So are there any other questions that you would highly recommend people not ask during an interview?
Boy, that's a good question.
I mean, one thing that I was thinking of, hey, so tell me, do you really think I can work in this industry?
Right, right.
I don't think that would be good. Or, hey, tell me,
Right.
how much money do you think I can really make? Because,
Right.
yeah, I'm just, I'm going to be doing something else, but, I just want to make a little side money. So do you really think it's realistic that I'm going to make, $100,000 a year with you? And probably
Yeah.
not a good way to go into a meeting with somebody.
Right. And I wouldn't say what I said to an agent one time when I went in, and and I was just being honest, and I said, you know what, honestly, I don't want to be, I don't have to be a star. I don't have to make a ton of money. I just want to work. Like, I love the work and I want to do it. And while that's very true for me and is very honest, for that particular agent, not what he wanted to hear, because he wants someone who wants to be a star and is making total bank, because that means he can then make his boat payment. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
so I'm not saying that you lie, but be aware that, think about it from the agent or the manager's perspective, because they see you as a way to bring in money for their firm, and obviously they want to, hopefully anyway, help you along in your career and make sure that you can succeed, because they succeed when you succeed. So it is a reciprocal relationship.
Well, I'm just trying to think of if there are any specific questions that actually might be helpful, for the actor to know. I mean, once again, something I just thought of. So let's say, it sounds like it's going well, and it seems like they're going to either manage or represent you. I think a really good question might be, so I just want to find out, so what's a good way for me to stay in touch with you?
Exactly.
Do you want me to, is it okay to call? Do you want me to send emails? Do you want me to just check in periodically with postcards? Now, certainly a manager's, it's going to be very different, because for a manager, you have a much closer connection, much more personal connection. You're going to be talking more regularly. But for agents, sometimes they do have a lot of people.
Right.
And quite often, they don't want phone calls with you going, hey, so just wanted to find out, do you have anything for me today?
Right.
Anything going on? Because typically they're going to say, look, if I have something going on for you, believe me, you're going to hear it first. So.
That's right. You're going to get a text or an email that says you an audition. So yeah, we'll be in touch with you. But Aaron, it's a great question to ask, because obviously different people like different types of communication. If you have an older agent or manager, they might want to be on the phone. If you have a younger one or someone who's a bit more hip, they might want to hear through Twitter, or whether it's an email or a text. Those types of things. So, but certainly find out how they want to be in contact, and maybe how often. And the other thing that I would ask is, what can I do to help you along, you manager and or agent? And oftentimes they'll say, take more classes, sometimes do self-submissions, create your own content, find ways to get yourself, taking casting director workshops is something that is one way in order to get your face out there so you can be seen by casting directors. And so, I do them, and as soon as I'm done with them, I will usually email my manager or my agent, depending on what type of workshop that I did, and say, hey, I just had a great workshop with so-and-so. They really loved what I was doing. With da-da-da-da-da, and they said, next time you see a breakdown that comes around, that would be something that I might be right for. Make sure you put it in the notes that I met you at a workshop. So that's something to get to know, because it really is about relationships. It's not who you know, it is who knows you and who can trust you. because, as Stuart said, there are, 1,800 people might be submitting for one thing. There are hundreds of thousands of actors out here. So with that many people, from a casting director's point of view, you have to be someone that they know they can trust, because they don't have time. They've got 40 other people who they know they can trust. So why should they trust you? So you have to create that relationship. Casting director workshops is one way to do it. Having your manager or your agent submit you and say, look, here's the stuff that he or she has done. You can trust this person. And then you can eventually start getting in for auditions. You might not book it, but you might get in the front door and get to know names and faces.
And so how do people hear about the showcases?
It's hard not to. There's sort of, Aaron, you and I kind of talked about this. In Los Angeles, there's an industry around the industry where there are all these companies that are trying to help you along in your career. And casting director workshops and agent and manager workshops are one of those things. And there are lots of businesses out here that do them. And essentially, it breaks down this way. A casting director workshop company will put out an email, or they'll post it on their website and say, these people are coming in on these particular dates for $40 or $60 or $29, whatever it happens to be. You can sign up and you come in, you do a 5 to 10 minute Q&A with the person, and then you either have a prepared scene or the person gives you a scene and pairs you up with somebody. You come in, you do 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, depending on how it goes, with the casting director or with a manager or the agent. They might give you some redirect, they might not, and then you're done. And so that's sort of how the workshop works. And you can sign up for them, because there are so many around. And then you'll get the email blasts saying, hey, so-and-so who never comes in is casting a feature film soon, and so you can go in and sort of get your face seen. I mean, it's kind of, Aaron, you and I briefly talked about this. There are different philosophies about whether these workshops are okay or not okay, because technically you should not be paying for an audition. If someone says, in order to be seen by me, you must pay me X number of dollars, that is not right. However, workshops tread a different line where they're billed as educational experiences, because you are learning from the casting director or the agent or the manager about typical things. And people fall on either side of that line of whether they think it's legal or not legal. But the harsh reality of it is so hard to get seen by people out here that is an avenue that you really need to take. I think, anyway. It's a way to get to know people. It'd be a way to get to know Stuart, and then you follow him on Twitter, and then you can have a Twitter conversation with him. I've done that with various casting directors that I've gotten to know, and we'll chat back and forth about a particular place like that we like to go for dinner. So it is a way to meet and become friendly with the sort of some of the gatekeepers in the industry.
And I guess just to kind of wind things up, and the key thing is, you can have all the contacts in the world, but if you're not prepared, when you meet with them, it's really not going to do you any good. And so that's why, just kind of going back to the very beginning of our conversation, you've got to have everything in order so that you're involved in the classes, you've got a great headshot or multiple headshots, you've had great training, you know what to do at an audition, you're very comfortable when you're meeting with representation internally. You might be shaking, but you've got to keep in the back of your mind that you've got to put yourself in their shoes, and they want to work with somebody that they trust, somebody they feel comfortable with, somebody they like, because you are representing them. When you're going out on an audition or a job, if you mess up, you act unprofessionally, you don't have things memorized like you're supposed to, you show up late, or you've got horrible attitudes, it's a reflection on your representation. If that happens enough, the casting directors or the producers or directors, they're going to stop calling that agent or that manager because they're not trusting their talent. So I think the important thing too is, even after you've made the connections, you just have to be able to produce as well. And that's what it's all about. And as you were saying, look, it's a difficult process. It's not something that normally happens overnight. I mean, every once in a while you hear about somebody, kind of being discovered, but that's so rare. I mean, all these overnight sensations are people who've been working really hard for years and years and years and years, and they happened all of a sudden, hit it at one point. But it's because they've really, really worked very hard at making sure that they are ready so that when the time is right, things can happen. Hey, Jason, I want to make sure that we do have time for questions, for you as well. So, Joel, if there are some questions, if you wouldn't mind bringing them up now.
Yeah, that'd be great. So, Erin asked a question about. So she says, "I know. Is it possible to go over how to get auditions for big stuff like primetime television and blockbuster movies to begin with? Like, do I need to first have a good LA agent and go through them, or is there any other way? And if I do need an agent, how do I go getting that top agent? Thank you."
That is a great question. I think it depends on where you are in your career. If you are newer and you're just starting out, it's going to be very difficult, certainly, to get auditions for big-time TV shows. Pilot season happens at the beginning of the year, and for the most part, they're looking for stars. They just want stars to come in and be the series lead for these TV shows, because remember, they need to pitch. Whoever's creating the pilot has to create it to a network, and they have to pitch it to advertisers. So there needs to be name recognition. So if you're low level, and I don't mean that skill wise, but reputation wise, I'm very low level reputation wise out here. They're not going to call me in. I'm just not. So it's really, really difficult to get those big time auditions. You might get called in for a co-star role, so it's going to be like it's an under 5. But now that they're merged, it's kind of the same thing as a co-star. You might have 3 to 5 lines.
Could you explain what under 5 means?
Yeah, under the after contract, if you had under 5 lines, you were known as an under 5, and you would be billed as an under 5, paid as an under 5, and on your resume you put a U5. So that's kind of what that is.
Yeah.
So it's going to be difficult to get those. You might have a better shot at getting into films because they cast a wider net for films than they do for TV shows, and there's a longer casting process for feature films. So it might be easier. I haven't had any auditions that way, so I can't really tell you. But it might be, you might stand a better shot of getting some of those bigger films if it is a film instead of a TV show. And with regard to working with a big-time agent, there is a philosophy out here that unless you are discovered as an overnight sensation, you sort of need to work your way up through agents. So somebody who's running one of the big, or is an agent at a big agency, they're probably not going to pick you up out of obscurity from wherever it is that you happen to be, just because they're busy trying to book their clients so they can make millions and millions of dollars. And so they're not going to be as interested in a person who might be doing great work in a market that's not Los Angeles. They don't know you. No one out here knows you. A director doesn't know you. The producers don't know you. You're not a known quantity. So it's going to be tougher to get representation by a bigger client. But if you get reputation by a smaller client, then you get yourself a name. You've got lots of credits behind you. You show you can do amazing work. Hey, and let's assume, Aaron, that you're incredibly talented. I would love to make that assumption. And who knows? Like, you do one thing, and a big agent might be like, boom, this is who I want. And then you're represented by them, and next thing you know, you're starring opposite Bradley Cooper. So.
And the other thing too is, and it's funny because a lot of times people are really geared into thinking they need an agent, from a huge international agency. But the reality is that sometimes the smaller agent might be much better for you at this point, because you could be lost at a big agency because, like you were saying, Jason, I mean, they're dealing with their stars. That's where they're going to see the most money. And they might love you, think you're incredibly talented, but you're probably going to be at the bottom of the list. But if you go with somebody who's smaller but really believes in you, will fight much harder for you because they don't necessarily have the stars that they're pitching. They see you as a work in progress. That might be a much better place for you to be. And I've spoken with some managers before who said that one of the difficult parts of their job is they might have started with somebody brand new and they helped them along. They got them in touch with the right photographers and the right classes and helped shape their careers. And then as soon as they hit on a television series, and I don't want to name the series in this one particular case, the guy left. And he said, nah, I don't need you anymore. I want to go with a big agent, big manager now.
Right.
And the guy was saying, I'm the one who got you here. And there was no loyalty. And the manager was pretty upset. And so just a couple of things to keep in mind. It doesn't necessarily take somebody with a big name to get you the audition. And then it's up to you to actually book the job. So sometimes you can be much, much better off working with a smaller, maybe a second-tier manager or a second-tier agent, but somebody who's going to really, really work much harder for you, maybe from a personal point of view and then even from a financial point of view, because they see you as somebody who potentially could be making a lot of money, and they will do everything they possibly can. So, I really wouldn't worry about the big name manager or agency at this point. Get out there and start booking jobs and getting work, and things will start to happen. And I agree with you, Jason. It's, for the pilot season, which now it's kind of wacky where they're casting pilots year round now. It is true. I mean, the biggest time was it like January through April? I think it's like the end of January. But you'll see pilots taking place year round, and once again, it doesn't necessarily have to be the starring role. It could be a smaller role, but yeah, for a feature film, there are so many more parts, and all it takes is to be seen and do really, really good work, and that's what brings on more work. When you do a really good job, even if it's a smaller role, and you hear about those things happening all the time. People are seen, they're liked, and then they are being brought in to read for bigger roles. So. I like your thoughts and your enthusiasm, and also just keep in mind that it doesn't have to be the biggest thing overnight. It takes time.
Oh,
Joe, any other questions for us?
Can I jump in real quick? And
yeah.
Just one thing to think about for Aaron, the questioner, is that keep in mind that you might stand. You don't have to come to Los Angeles to get booked in a feature film. There are a lot of state incentives that are out there now, like, for example, New Mexico, where they filmed Breaking Bad. Obviously, that's going to be ending. But New Mexico films a lot. Louisiana films a lot. I think Pennsylvania has got great stuff.
Atlanta is probably the biggest right now. It was unbelievable. I shot a feature film in Atlanta about a month ago. I was coming out of the hotel, getting ready to be shuttled onto the set. I walked over to a van. And they said, well, what show are you working on? So I named the name of the movie. They said, oh, no, that's the van over there. There were 3 vans ready to take people to 3 different sets. So, yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, there are different markets out there where things are just booming.
Yeah.
Primarily
and
because
there's less competition in those markets as well. So if you happen to be in that market, you might get really great stuff being cast in some of those in a movie or TV show that's filming there. And then after a year or so, you've got these great credits on your resume and you're known to various directors. Then might be a time to come to Los Angeles, and then you might stand a better chance at getting called in for the bigger stuff. So sometimes it's a matter of building up credits in some of the smaller markets before you move into the larger one.
Good point.
That actually leads us right into Tommy's question. He lives in Wilmington, North Carolina, or right outside Wilmington, I guess. And he says, it seems they always bring in actors for the major roles to Wilmington. Why don't they look for actors wanting to be discovered for major parts here in my home state where I reside? Do they not think we're good enough because we're not from LA?
Well, it's kind of like with what Jason said. Look, people have to sell their project. And one of the ways you sell the project is you hire, and look, I'm not agreeing with it. I'm just explaining the rationale behind it. They have to bring in well-known people, people that they know will have people pay money to see them in the movies, or have a hit television series because of the name recognition. Like I can tell you, and this is kind of crazy. There are times, I mean, I live probably about 3.5 hours from New York. There have been times I have had to go to New York to audition for a project that was being shot in my home state, but they felt like they needed to do the casting in New York to get New York talent. But my agent, who's in New York, brought me up to New York to do the audition. So sometimes that's just the way of thinking. And I know it can be very frustrating. I mean, you happen to be living in an amazing area in Wilmington, and also Charlotte has some really good things going on there as well. You've got great casting directors in the Wilmington, North Carolina area also. That's just reality. You know, they typically will cast the big parts out of New York or LA. But just like Jason was saying, sometimes there's some really good parts that you still can get as a local. But if you want to, really work and be considered for the bigger parts, chances are you're going to have to be in either New York or LA. But like I said, some of those other parts can be wonderful as well.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Just two more questions, guys, if we could squeeze these in here. Faith from South Africa just asks a quick question that I'm sure you guys have some answers to. When an actor works one day on a TV show, do you have any idea how much they could earn?
Oh, I mean, there's something called scale. And if you are a member, and we're talking about in the States, if you're talking about SAG-AFTRA, you're a member of the union, and that's considered a day player, you're working one day. I'm pretty sure scale, which is the minimum of what you will earn, is, I think does $842 sound right to you?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Now, there are look, your agent or the manager can't force it, but the agent can negotiate anything. The agent could say, well, my client's not going to work less, for less than $10 million for the day. But if you are getting the most basic amount of money that the union has agreed upon with, production people, it's $842 for an 8-hour day. And then and I don't want to go into all the details, but there are additional monies that you can get if you work more than 8 hours, and the specific hours that you work, and things like if you're working 1 a.m. there are different fees. But as a more generic way of answering your question, if you're working one day on a television series, and I think it's the same for a feature film as well, and you're a member of the union, it's $842.
Okay, great. And I want to just go to one last question.
That sounds about right. Obviously, it depends.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's going to change, obviously, as time moves on, I'm sure. This is from Ginny in Texas, and this actually would be directed toward Jason. This is a great question to close us out on. You hear so much about models and actors who happen to be at the right place at the right time, meet someone, and then their career takes off. Where in Los Angeles do you recommend going to make good connections?
That's a great question. I don't mean to laugh. It is a great question. It's one of those stories that you always hear, like so and so was discovered at the soda counter. For the most part, it's not exactly true. Like you do need to go out and about. Unfortunately, I don't have a list of names of places where you should go and hang out in order to meet people and be seen. But there are various meetups that you can do, like internet, they're called meetups, and you can meet industry people that way who might have a certain interest in a particular thing. So let's say, for example, I think you said you was from Texas. If say you were a Texas grad, it might be that there's a Texas grad meetup that happens in Los Angeles, and it turns out that the director for a major motion picture is also a Texas grad and happens to be there just to hang out with other, UT folks, and you bond over hook 'em horns, and the next thing you know, you're getting called in. So to my knowledge, there isn't like a place to go to be seen, but you do have to get out and about because so much is internet-based these days. Making that person-to-person connection, I think, becomes even more important because you're not always getting called into an office. You're not always meeting with a legit person who's behind the desk. They might just be looking, like Stuart, for example, is looking at a little tiny thumbnail of you on his screen, and there might be 100 on his screen, and he's got to briefly go through and then flip to the next, flip to the next, flip to the next. So it's really hard to make that person-to-person connection. So I wish that I had a list of places to go to be seen, but you have to get out and about. And then you'll start meeting people and then get invited to parties and barbecues and screenings and all those sorts of things. So I wish there was a quick way to do it, because I would have done it already, but unfortunately there isn't one. So sorry about that.
Well, but you know, with what you were saying before, like there are you can go to, you know, just do searches online and find meetup groups for actors or models or specific genres of the industry. I mentioned women in film and video. I mean, they have great meetings, and you can just do some searches, and you'll find people who have similar interests. And you know, it really is a lot about going out and finding people. Who knows? Maybe you've got next door neighbors, people in your apartment complex that you'll speak to around the pool. Trust me, in LA, everybody's an actor, everybody's a producer, everybody's a model. Everybody has, like, you know, this hit script that they're just, you know, waiting to hear back from. And so it is important to put yourself out there, and like Dave was saying, like there isn't any one specific spot that you go to, but you can definitely find places where people are hanging out. And I'm not necessarily endorsing spending a lot of time doing extra work, and that's something we really didn't get into very much. But you know, maybe, you know, taking a day or a couple of days and doing some extra work, especially if you're just coming to LA, just to see the lay of the land, you know, just to meet some people and try to network and find out, you know, what is going on for you in your particular area. And I wouldn't, if you're trying to get principal work and you're trying to get a manager and an agent, I would not recommend doing very much of that in Los Angeles, because then you'll be viewed as an extra and not somebody that the agent wants to, you know, represent, or the manager who wants to manage. And in other markets, it's a very different kind of situation, but that's a whole other workshop. But I think it might be a good idea just to make connections there a couple of times, just to get your feet wet and kind of see what's out there. But you know, like you were saying, Dave, it is important.
Earth Cafe, which is in I think it's in WeHo, which is West Hollywood, and it's spelled URTTH, I think. Earth Cafe. There are several of them throughout the Los Angeles area. I've heard anyway that is a place where a lot of industry types do hang out. So if you're going to take a day, maybe you do a day of extra work and that's it, and then you take another day and you just hang out at Earth Cafe all day, maybe you could see people. And somebody else mentioned a particular Starbucks in Burbank, apparently, where if you really listened in, you would know what was going to happen in the industry about 2 months before it actually happens, because people are just chatting about it all the time, because they're all industry folks. They're all coming in to get their coffee, and they're all having conversations.
And just as a little suggestion, you know, you don't want to just like see somebody in the industry and bang them over the head with a headshot and start, you know, pitching them. And you know, it's relationships. It's, you know, people who find you interesting, having interesting discussions where maybe the industry doesn't even come up in conversation for a period of time. You share some, you know, similar interests and things like that. Because look, people don't want to be pitched when they're out just, you know, sitting down and having coffee necessarily. And if somebody finds it that, you know, they like you know, you want to play on their softball team or whatever, you know, whatever it is, and assuming that you've got a good arm and, you know, you got a good eye and you're scoring a lot of runs, well, you know, then you start sharing interests, and that's really how you build relationships with people. And so, look, it's like dating. You know, you don't want to, you know, go out on a date and the first date and say, hey, so we should talk about marriage right now. Let's you know, can we sit down and talk? Really, how many children do you want to have? You know, not a good way to start off. You know, try to get, you know, let the people get an opportunity to know you, and you get an opportunity to know them. And, you know, eventually those things will start to happen. But, you know,
it's the old maxim of people getting hired for any position. Is this a person you want to go out and have a beer with after work? Right? If you think about it, that in terms of the test is like, is this a person who wants to talk about nothing but the industry, or somebody who also likes dogs? And you can talk about dogs, you know, or whatever it happens to be. But Aaron is absolutely right. It is the relationship that you're creating, and you want it to be one where you're friendly, and it's not just business. but they love hanging out with you, and you love hanging out with them. And then, you know what? Let's get together and work on a project. That's the best way, I think. So,
I agree. Hey, Jason, I want to thank you so much. It was such a pleasure. I know it's been a while since we had a chance to hang out. And actually, you might not, I don't know if you remember this one. We also did a commercial together.
I do. It's the first time we met.
Where
You walked in on me as I was sitting on top of a Xerox machine photocopying my butt.
very memorable. Now, is that on your reel? That's the real question.
That's right. It was there for a little bit. I might have taken it off. So
Well, you never know when they need that, for a commercial today.
that's right.
Anyhow,
That's
it
right.
was such a pleasure reconnecting with you, and thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your expertise and your experiences here. Really, really do appreciate it.
No problem, Aaron. I'm happy to do it, and it's such a learning experience, and I'm still learning. And I wish I had more information to pass on, but maybe I will down the line if.
We'll talk again.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks,
Thanks.
Aaron. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching, and break legs.
Thank you.
Well, thanks everybody for being on, and again, thanks Jason, Brenda, and Stuart, all of our guests today for being a part of this workshop.
Oh, Brenda?
This has been incredible. Yes, Stuart, Brenda, and Jason. Thank you all three for being a part of us today. This has been just a great workshop, and I've learned a lot. I know everybody that's been on the call has as well. I'm going to be editing the recording of this and getting this up early next week, so all of the people who purchased weren't able to make it live will have access to that. Also, you've probably heard rumors about the season pass, the 2013 Acting and Modeling Workshop Season Pass, where you get 8 workshops, including this one, obviously, for one price. And you can check out more about that online if you go to howtomodel.com. There's information on the store page there. We'd also like to invite you to head over to facebook.com/howtomodel. It's our Facebook page. Make sure you like the page. Become a part of that community. I know all the different actors and models that have trained with Aaron are hanging out there, as well as casting directors and agents and all sorts of different people in the industry are on that page. It's a great place to network and communicate, ask questions, get feedback, and Aaron spends pretty much every day checking that and responding to people over there. So it's a great resource for you to use and a great community to be a part of. Don't forget, the main website to go to for more workshops and products that Aaron offers is howtomodel.com. And if you want to head over there, we've got an entire list of the workshops we've done over the last few years, and anything from how to get a great resume, how to develop great headshots, finding an agent in your area or another market, breaking into New York. Obviously, this workshop here, breaking into Los Angeles. I mean, I can't even list all of them. They're on the site there, and it's a great place to go and get those resources for your acting and modeling career. If you do head over to our Facebook page, facebook.com/howtomodel, and leave a quick feedback about this workshop, just say, hey, I was on the workshop today. It was great. I learned, and then fill in the blanks, something you learned, something you took away. We'll give you a free gift for just leaving a great testimonial there on the website today. And finally, I just want to mention that you might be in a stage in your career where you're getting really serious and you need some personal attention. Aaron, every month, has a few spots open up. It's very limited, but he does work with people one-on-one on an online virtual setting similar to what you're seeing here, where he can talk with you. He can review your headshots, your resume, your background, your demo reel, all the different things that you've done, and help coach you and direct you in the industry for your specific market or a market you'd like to break into. And if you're really interested in that, feel free to email Aaron. His email address is Aaron, Aaron, at howtomodel.com, and just put in the subject line one-on-one coaching. Again, that's very limited, and it's kind of first come, first serve. He has a few spots open every month for that. He's obviously a full-time actor and model, so he's on auditions and working on projects and constantly busy, but he does have some spots open each month. So send him an email if you're interested for some one-on-one coaching. Well, Aaron, thanks, man. This has been another great session. Looking forward to the next one, and have a great day, everyone. We'll talk to you real soon.
Thank you so much.